All right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and what a week, eh? What a week. So today I want to talk mostly, I'm going to answer a question quickly. I had a couple of questions. I want to talk a little bit about Bitcoin because Bitcoin is looking pretty much like, in at least as far as I can tell, like it wants 42K and it wants it quickly. The stock market is firing warning signs, okay? It's definitely firing warning signs. So I want to make sure I draw some lines in the sand and we're all clear on all of that stuff. And of course, we'll have a good look at the charts ready for the week ahead. So first of all, quick announcement. I'm going to be appearing on Creative Precious Metals channel tomorrow to do a part 3. If you go to the videos and scroll down, you'll be able to find a picture of me somewhere. There's part 2 and there's part 1. So if you haven't seen those, go and check those out if you're interested. And like I said, part 3 should be up tomorrow, Sunday. I had a question regarding how I plan to sell the top. First thing I wanted to point out is you have to have manager expectations, okay? No one's selling the absolute Pico top. But I do think you can get pretty close depending on the setup that it gives you. And I'm going to show you 2 examples, okay? We'll first do the parabolic curve and then we'll do the trend line breakdown. And to show you an example of this is all the way back in 2015, okay? If I do this, you should be able to see that, first of all, we have this bottom formation in the bear market, right? And a range. And then what do? We break out, retest, looking for that resumption higher, okay? Now, I would argue that where we are today, this is essentially the 25K level, the range break, and we have indeed completed this with multiple backtests and are now looking to move on off. But we'll get to that in just a minute. First of all, I want to draw your eyes to this, okay? We have this bear market low, we have this base, and then we have the range break and resumption higher. Now, from here, you'll notice that what we can do is grab this and draw a pretty nice trend line. And so we have our first angle of attack, okay? Then what happens is we start to heat up and we start to get even more aggressive and we set a second trend line, something like this. Okay, let me extend this out a bit longer. Something like this. And then you can see that once again, we get even steeper from here to here. And then there's even another one from here to here. Okay, so this is a parabola, meaning we go up in a parabolic curve like this, right? Everyone's seen a parabola before, I'm sure. And the way I would personally deal with a parabola, the way I have historically dealt with parabolas, and also it's worth noting at this point, these are the easiest things to get out nearest the top at, okay? Because, like I said, we got this range break, we enter a bull market, okay, happy days, we confirm the range break, we know we're in a bull market. Then, like I said, we set one trend, then at some point it accelerates, second trend, accelerates and accelerates. And the way to deal with this, for me, is to sell on a trendline breakdown. Now, if you've been a long time watcher of the channel, you will have seen me sell trendline breakdowns as exit signals before on multiple assets. It's really no different to that, okay? Now, whether you got out here or here or here, okay, you can see that, and assuming you get in late as well, because there would have been, this would have been the neighborhood to be accumulating, right, down at the bottom of this range. But even if you're late to that and you don't get into the range break, you can see that we would still capture the bulk of the move, right? You get in at here where my mouse is making a mess, and then you would get out somewhere either here, here, or here. So you would have caught the bulk of the move, and that for me is as good as selling the top, okay? Again, you have to manage expectations, you're never going to sell here, but that is how I have dealt with parabolas in the past. That's how I hope to deal with this current Bitcoin bull market. Now, the big question is, will we actually get a nice parabolic expansion like this? Because these are actually a gift. These are a gift because they're really easy to get out near the top. Like I say, you just keep drawing trend lines until they're near vertical, and either the third one or the fourth one will get you out pretty close to the top in the scheme of things. And again, if you've been on the channel for a while, you will have known that we got a core position in this relative neighborhood and we added above 18.2, I think. And of course, we're adding on the way up as well. So ultimately, we will have been able to snatch the vast majority of this move. But the caveat here is we need a parabolic curve. We need this big parabola to unfold for this to happen. Well, what happens if we don't get one of these? What about in this example right here, where we don't have a parabolic blow off top, right? We don't have these 3 increasing or 4 increasing angles of attack. You could argue we had one here, right? And then you could also argue we had one from here to here, potentially. Something like this. And you could also argue we had one from here to here. So you can see this trick kind of still works, right? This one is nowhere near as easy to deal with as the prior one that I just showed you before. But you can see that this still kind of works, right? And if we were using this strategy, then the trend line breakdown would have got you out here, which is pretty good. And even if you held all the way through this and then back up here, you would have still been out somewhere around 50K, which isn't too far from the top. So again, you have to manage expectations. You're probably never going to sell the top, although this would have been pretty flipping close. And again, it's often the simplest things, okay? The best boxers have mastered what? They've mastered the basics, right? They're not doing flying, spinning, jumping punches. The best boxers have the jab, cross, hook, okay? That's what they have down. They can do it fast, explosive from every angle, always with a planted strong base. So this is how I like to trade. I think I've waffled way too long already, but hopefully this has answered your question. How am I planning to deal with the top? I'm planning to try to stay as cold and as unemotional as possible. I'm planning on drawing trend lines and looking to respect the trend lines as they break down. Also, it's worth pointing out that let's say you respect this trend line here and we get out. Well, then what happens? Well, Bitcoin sets one of these, right? And then breaks out again. So you always have the scope to get back in. And this is true if I scroll back to the prior bull market. We had this first initial range break, right? And then from here, we set a trend line. Along the way, we could have drawn steeper ones like this and sold. And then the way to get back in would have simply been to draw one this way and buy back here, right? Similarly, we probably could have drawn another one like this and exited on a trend line break here, only to redraw the trend line to the downside and re-enter back here, depending on how nimble you want to be, right? Same deal here. We could have drawn something like this, exited on a trend line breakdown, and then got back in when the market told us it was time to via a trend line break here. So we could have done this the whole way up. I personally don't like to hop in and out too much. I prefer to get a core allocation down here and then look to sell as close to the top as possible, depending on the setup that I can get given. Along the way, you'll see me add supplemental trade positions. If I hop into my Bitcoin chart and reset this, that's what these positions are, right? These are supplemental trades, and we also add the miners and we see what we can squeeze additional gains out of the market from doing this. But the long-time viewers of the channel know the core allocation was acquired down here, and I was saying it was malpractice not to be fully allocated at this range break of 18 to 18.2. And so from here, the vast majority of my Bitcoin position is acquired, and now it's just a case of letting enough candles play out to try to solve this problem, to try to solve whether or not we're going to have a true parabola. Up until quite recently, I thought this red line here was going to be the first line of attack. Now, it's always possible that I end up redrawing this, something like this, right? It's always possible that this is our primary incline now. So just like all the way back here, where we had our initial incline here, and then from there, of course, we set a steeper one coming from here to here. I think arguably we've just set this first one. Particularly if we can now clear this local high cluster back here, I think there's a good chance that this current red upward sloping support line is our first angle of attack. And therefore, what we would kind of expect, or at least what I would kind of expect and be hoping for, is we get this big blast off, pull back, and then at some point it starts to ramp up, and then we end up drawing a secondary angle of attack. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? Until eventually we can draw a third, even steeper angle of attack. And then, of course, once we eventually break down from there, that will be our exit signal. So that's how I plan to deal with it. Now, as ever, one day at a time, okay? It's a market, anything can happen. It's all very well saying this right now, but it's another thing entirely in doing it, okay? We need so many stars to align perfectly for this to happen. So the only thing I can really say with confidence is that I don't know what's going to happen, and we have to take it one day at a time. There was another question here regarding what makes a good trend line, and the answer is three things, okay? Size. I would like the size of this trend line to be as big as possible, okay? A big trend line, that's terribly drawn, but a big trend line, okay, something like this, which goes on for a long time with loads of touches, is far more reliable than a tiny little trend line that lasts like this, okay? So the first thing I would look for is size. The second thing I would look for is symmetry, meaning the distance between the touches, okay? The distance between this touch and this touch is equal, or as close to equal as possible, as the distance between this touch and this touch. That's called symmetry. The more symmetrical it is, the more reliable it's likely to be. The other thing to look for is steepness. So the closer to horizontal, the more likely it is to perform well. And the closer it is to vertical, right, the steeper it is like that, the more likely it is that it's going to roll over and fail. How many touches? Well, at least two normally, right? You would normally say you get 2 touches and that's a trend line, and 3 touches, the market respects it, and then you would look for a breakout. So that is far too much waffling for one session. Let's get into the rest of this video, okay? Look, I put this out on Friday. I said they're ringing this mainstream bell, okay? They're ringing this mainstream bell, and this bull run is closer than most people realize, I think. And what I mean by that is, look, this is right on CNBC, okay? This is a place where you will only lose money if you read the news, okay? These people do not have anyone's best interest at heart, except for the institutions. They do not want retail to make money. They certainly do not want the average Joe investor to profit. And if you come here to any of these mainstream news outlets looking for alpha, you're only going to lose money, right? So, but here they are. Coinbase is confident that a US Bitcoin ETF will be approved after the SEC's court defeat. They are going to continue to ring the bell all the way up to the top of this bull market, and they're going to do so because they need as much exit liquidity as possible, right? So again, I say they are ringing the mainstream bell on this one, and this bull run is clearly closer than most people realize, okay? When they want to accumulate, they want to do so under the radar. They would not be ringing the bell on the mainstream media like they are here. The charts for Bitcoin continue to look more and more and more bullish. I really find it difficult, other than there's a few people out there, right, that are drawing charts like this and say, oh, here's what comes next. 12k Bitcoin, 8k Bitcoin, right? There's absolutely no technical reason to expect a move like that. Every other chart I find just looks really, really bullish, right? Got this range, you know, bottom, range breakout, range for a bit, breakout, bull run. And then the same here, right? Range, bottom, breakout, back test, bull run. And here again, range break, like range bottom, breakout, range for a bit, looking to break out again. So the thing looks really, really, really bullish. Tony the Bull here has shown, look at this as well, right? Here, Bart Simpson into a parabola, and pause your screen and take a good look at this dotted vertical line that I've just drawn red pen over, right? Have a good look here and compare it to this. It is exactly the same as the last time that we did this and then entered a parabola, just like we've done this and are starting to enter a parabola. So again, more bullishness. The more I look at Bitcoin, the more bullish it looks. And if you're still not convinced, okay, Bitcoin has confirmed breakouts against the Nikkei, Nasdaq, S&P, and the Dixie. Here's Bitcoin against the Nikkei. Look, clear as day breakout. Bitcoin against the Nasdaq, clear as day breakout. Same for the S&P 500, clear as day breakout. And against the dollar, slightly less clear, but it looks to me like breakout retest, looking for that resumption. It needs to clear that local high back here to confirm. As far as everything else goes, undeniably clear breakout. We are seeing a flight to quality emerge. So here's the dollar, right? The DXY, the dollar basket. You can see not broken out on this downward sloping red resistance line. Still looks heavy. Still looks like it wants lower. And the euro dollar continuing to hold and confirm breakouts on daily closing basis. So happy days there. We like to see that. Bitcoin's still doing Bitcoin things, isn't it? Not only filling this wick, but looking to take out the prior high, looking to continue to set new highs. I don't see any reason why 42k doesn't come next. I honestly don't see any reason why we can't at least push up something like this, right, into that cycle low, 60-day cycle low. And then from there, especially if we can get ETF approval or light at the end of the tunnel, I really think we could start to come flying out of here, start to set those secondary steeper angles of attack that I was talking about at the start of the video. So I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. I've been very bullish on Bitcoin, but this price action doesn't give me any reason to doubt that. Also, going back to the start of the video where I was talking about setting new trend lines, is that what we've got? Have we got our first angle of attack? And is this 25k the equivalent of that 2015 range break? You know, that bottom, flip it, retest a couple of times, and now off we go. Are we about to set that second angle? I don't know. I can't see a bearish argument here. I really cannot see a bearish argument here. XRP, that trade is hanging around break even. I know a few of you like XRP. Not a big fan, but it's a trade and it's there around break even. So long and strong continue to push. Still yet to add these crypto related equities. I think what we could possibly do is redraw this maybe and then try to use this as some kind of entry. I don't really like it at the moment. There's not the follow through. MicroStrategy though is starting to look a lot better. So I could see myself adding this earlier in the week. Fire again hanging around those range lows, not really showing us anything that we can work with from here. And Marathon again, breakout retest, possible resumption, but hasn't done it yet. So we'll see. I do think the time will come, and particularly if Bitcoin keeps pushing on, then we'll likely see this happen in the not too distant future. But for now, it's difficult for me to say with confidence that I want to get in here. And it almost feels a bit like, even though these are correlated mostly to Bitcoin, it almost feels like they're waiting for permission for the stock market to rally, doesn't it? So also heading over to the stock market, things start to get a little bit confusing. On the one hand, we potentially are going to hold these lows, and if we do, then we've got still a valid cycle with a double bottom, and we're going to continue to move up, and we'll look to buy the breakout, okay? No problem with that. If we come down and sweep these lows, then technically speaking, we got a failed cycle, and cycle theory tells us to therefore be open to a declining weekly cycle, a full 26 weeks or 24 weeks on average of downtrend. So not something I want to see, not something I'm championing. There is always this third possibility that what we also see is something that I really don't want to see, and that is that we come down here, sweep this low, and then reverse and sharply move higher. Now, that would be difficult to deal with because it will have to be a bearish bias as soon as we take out this local low from back here. However, if the market is going to sweep this and then turn around and this form a big trap, it's no good me saying, well, that's a failed cycle and it's GG's and the only thing that's possible is this. You know, I have to listen to the market. I have to let the market tell me what's going on. and I will still have to be respecting this breakout. So it's kind of a tough read at the moment. It's an easy read if we bounce out of here next week. Okay, that's an easy read. That still says we've got a valid cycle ahead of us. We've retested it and we're just about to go again. No problem. It's also an easy read if we sweep this low and then enter a downtrend. Okay, that makes perfect sense as well. Failed cycle, looking for a weekly cycle decline and, you know, a bear market decline. The only thing that would be difficult to deal with is a sweep of these lows followed by a reversal, because that would be kind of out of whack. But it's a market, anything can happen, and sometimes you do have to be nimble and ready to adapt. All of this exact analysis applies right here to the NASDAQ, okay? So ideally, we don't want to see these lows taken out. Ideally, we want to see us come swinging out of here, and if we can get a breakout, we can respect it. Cycle theory tells us if we sweep these lows, then we should expect a bear trend to evolve. Of course, it's a market, anything can happen, and therefore, if we did sweep this lows and sharply recover, I would still be looking to respect that breakout. So the best case scenario is we hold those lows. That makes the read very, very easy and clear. Sweep those lows and things start to get a little bit more muddy in the short term. The exact same is true of the Dow, okay? So we're still kind of doing this, aren't we? Looking for that breakout. All the while we're above those lows, then happy days, but take out those lows and things get a little bit more complicated. Russell 2K almost looks like it wants to move all the way back down to these range lows. So maybe that can happen and we'll just drag this trend line across. Well, excuse me, this one. Maybe we'll just drag this trend line across and still look to play the breakout if it can occur. But the stock market is kind of signaling that darker times are ahead at the moment. And it's kind of curious to me that all this is happening at a time when gold is blasting off. Okay, gold is blasting off. That minor position I took, you can see because it's an equity, is kind of lagging at the moment. But I do expect this will continue to catch up. That's no problem. Like I said, gold is firing off. Bitcoin is acting like a flight to safety. Okay, finally, we love to see that. And the stock market is undeniably firing warning signs again. So again, if this is a double bottom and we can come swinging out of here on Monday, then no problem at all. But undeniably, the market is firing some early warning signs. You can see Tesla all the way back down here. So no trade for a while from me out of Tesla. Continue to try to ride this trade as best we can for oil. So we're still short, still not really closing daily candles above this upward sloping support line. Still kind of acting as resistance, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing roll over. Has been moved to break even, so at least the trade is managed there and there's no risk. Clear. I think Bitcoin bullish as a son of a gun. I think we can still add stock market longs if we can get some breakouts, and I am still looking to add those crypto related equities and the miners if we can get some follow through next week. But undeniably, warning shots are being fired here. So all I can really do is say, hold my hands up and say, look, the water's muddy at the moment. I want to wait until the water's clear. And then when the water's clear, there will come a time, okay? There will come a time in the not too distant future when I know exactly what's going to happen, whether it's that or whether it's this, okay? Doesn't really matter. But what matters is until the read is clear, until I know exactly what's going to happen, then I just need to kind of sit back, continue to play patient. And there's not a great deal of risk here. There's not a great deal of exposure. Even if I finished up here for the year, it's been a great year, right? We caught the vast majority of this move. And if we could just focus on Bitcoin and perhaps gold for the end of the year, then I think we can still nail down some nice profits. So again, patience, 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 and clearer times will be coming just around the corner. I'm sure of that. So in the meantime, that's it from me. I hope you're doing well in life. Take care from me until next time. I'm your boy Camel. Members only video is about to be recorded, so look out for that for the members. And I hope you have a great weekend. Until next time, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.